Exciting.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Blokes podcast. Ryan Hassan from the Centre for Healing here, joined as always by Nick Sutherland from Myndfit. Nico, where do we find you at the minute, mate? You are not in your usual spot.
No, I've just come in from bumfuck Idaho, northwest Queensland, and now thankfully I'm in civilization in Agnes Water, just near the gateway to the Barrier Reef.
Wow, wait, so is this like one of your new neighbours' houses or something?
No, so we live 15, we just bought, everyone knows about the property we bought. Listeners do, it's 15 minutes out of town in the hinterland, and so I've come into town to use some Wi-Fi today because I need to record this. And yeah, just met a random dude online, and a really good dude, and he's actually going to come and be a guest on the podcast. He's got a podcast, he wants me to be a guest on his podcast. He's into mental health, and it's just, I love my life. Remember years ago when I just surrendered. I mean, I've got no fucking idea what I'm doing. Let's just let the universe tell me what to do and where to go, and I just turn up and it all just happens. So
I wonder what's going to happen today, eh? That morning motto of yours.
That is my morning motto. I wonder what today will bring.
It is. I'm very, very excited that we have a guest on today, and it's a guest that I'm really interested in speaking to. We have Melanie Gleeson, the founder of Endota Spas. For those listeners around Australia will surely know Endota Spa. I think I've bought every one of my ex-girlfriends an Endota Spa voucher at some point.
Hopefully that's not why they're exes now, but thank you.
Surely that didn't play a role. Maybe I was doing it to make up for something I did bad, right? So I've got Melanie on today to talk about sort of her journey starting at Endota Spas. I believe it was with the one stop on the Mornington Peninsula, now to over 100 all around the country. And Nick and I are going to have a chat to her about her journey with Endota, and also, you know, whatever comes up in conversation. So Melanie, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Whereabouts was that first store exactly?
The first one was in Mount Martha on the Mornington Peninsula, and it was a house, and we ran a bed and breakfast, which we didn't really know how to do, but we did a small business course on it, and a spa. But we nearly didn't get our permits because 20 years ago, there wasn't really a wellness industry and people didn't really know what it was. Anyway, I remember filling out the permit sign, and we had to write what we did. So I did massage, facials, body treatments, and we had 14 objections from the local council because they thought we were going to be a brothel.
Was it the clothes you were wearing or the vibe you put out? Or
it's because we said massage.
Okay.
Yes. So
whereabouts in Mount Martha was it?
Bird Rock Avenue.
I used to live in Helena Street. So.
Oh, nice. It's near the DAVA, the DAVA.
Yeah. 20 years ago, I could have come up for a massage.
You certainly could have. So we had to go and talk to the council and explain
Convince them that you weren't a rubber drug joint.
And I remember one of them saying, "But who are you working for?" I was like, "No one. This is just us. We're starting it." And so it was a lot about education, really, education of well-being and what it meant to live better and feel better. It just wasn't, everybody now is in yoga gear and they're drinking smoothies and we're all doing things to live our optimum lives, but it wasn't really a thing 20 years ago.
What a change in 20 years. What a change.
Even what you just said then was to live better and, what did you say? Live better and feel the Myndfit slogan is think better, live better. So,
agreed.
Yeah, and we've had to do, I've been doing this for about 13 years, and I rebranded a few years ago and took an educational approach to mental health, and we're doing psychoeducation and cognitive retraining, so equipping people with the tools to think constructively and everything, and it took time to educate the market and say, look, this is what we're doing. There's another way of living, and it doesn't involve so much stress or tension or anxiety or so on. So it's amazing that you're 20 years down the track with that.
Yeah, and now the global wellness industry is like $4.5 trillion.
Wow.
So what was seen as a fringe sort of woo-woo, it's a viable, growing industry. Someone asked, I did an interview, what you've just said, Nick, an interview about wellness and the misconceptions. And one of the things that I said was, a misconception is wellness is just for, you know, a certain type of person or people with money to spend on it. And I said, that is a misconception, because for me, exactly what you said, if your mind is right, that is the starting point. And no matter your circumstances, even though hard they may be, you can shift this.
But so much of the wellness industry is symptom orientated as well. It's medicating the symptoms. So we're trying to get in and change the root cause of what's going on. And we're opening up the retreat up here, and it's all going to be based around the World Health Organization's definition of health, which is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease and infirmity. And that second part is so important, because people think, oh, I don't have a cold, I must be well. But their underlying stress, their cortisol, their adrenaline, their dopamine, and all their systems are really heightened. So, yeah, it's really important to help people into that understanding of what wellness really is.
Yeah, and we have to go back to, it's not new. It's so ancient, it's not funny. And we just have to go back, like you're doing, back to basics. Look at nature, learn from nature, live in nature. Simple things.
The law of nature is that everything is impermanent, and people live outside of that and get terribly fixated on everything being a certain way and how they'd like it to be. And it's just that bringing them back to nature, and it's so easy when you do it that way.
Yeah, agreed.
So Melanie, if there wasn't much of an industry back then, 20 years ago, what led you down that path? Were you on a bit of a journey in that area personally, which is why you wanted to open up a business and help others?
I had been working in one of the only spas in Melbourne. It was at George's, and it shut down. Oh. The whole department store shut down. So then I went and worked somewhere else, and in Eltham, which is an hour and a half from Frankston where I was living, and I worked there for about 6 years. And the person who owned that taught me how to run a small business, really. But I was sick of travelling an hour and a half each way every day, and that's why I really started on the Mornington Peninsula. But loved when people came in, they would be like this, or and then after a treatment, so you could see the physical change, but there was also an emotional change. Now, anyone who listens to your podcast that is a therapist or a treatment provider will know that sometimes in the rooms where there's a lot of stuff that comes up and a lot of shedding of stuff. And so there is a physical change and emotional change. And I wanted to be able to take that feeling to more people and wanted more people to feel better. And that's the same thing we do today, 20 odd years on. We make people feel better and we care for their well-being. And our values and we're saying the same things as we did back then, really. But I was lucky. I went to Woodley on the Mornington Peninsula, which was a school that was ahead of its time, really. And I did my first yoga retreat when I was in year 10. So they very much looked at education, experiential education. And I think having that upbringing sort of guided me into this area. Woodley had 3 rules, which was brilliant because they covered everything: respect for self, others, and the environment. And then that sort of shaped, everything shapes where you are today. And that was a big influence on me.
What a wonderful framework to have early on. Yeah, I've got a 3-year-old boy, and that's the kind of things I would love to instill in him. I certainly didn't learn that stuff at school. Well, I must have gone to a different type of school in the eastern suburbs of Melbourne. It was disrespect for others. I was too busy
wagging school.
Yeah. Well, my husband did go to he went to Ballon Park Tech in Coringal, and he did that. It was a different I was very fortunate to go to that school. It's sort of influenced by a little bit Steiner, a little bit Montessori.
Yeah. Did you go there with Steph Bodle?
Yeah, I know Steph.
Yeah.
Her daughter is an excellent soccer player.
Yes.
Shout out to Steph.
Actually, funny story, probably not one for the podcast.
Nah, go on.
It's always for the podcast.
Said it now, can't take it back. In year 6, I had a mad crush on a boy called Ben Costa, and that is Steph's older brother. And when we met, because Tilly played soccer with my son Fergus, we sort of got, oh, your brother's Ben. I had a mad crush on Ben. Yeah, we all went to So the peninsula, very insular. Yes.
The Insular Peninsula. Did you know Emma Stevens? Emma Stevens went there for, I think, the last 2 years of her school.
No. Maybe by face, not by name. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
So,
very insular anyway.
Very insular. So, Melanie, how do we go from, a perceived brothel by the local council and getting that approved to having over 100 stores now Australia-wide? Tell me about that process. I know the stresses of running a business on a smaller scale than you do now. And I'm really interested in that process of growth and also kind of how you've maintained your centre throughout that time.
Yes. Well, there have been very stressful moments during the journey, but I think having an underlying confidence that I could give it a go, and if it didn't work, that would be okay, helped. I'm very driven, which I've learned along the way, obviously, and a lot of hard work. But I think as well that the industry and the consciousness was changing, so that helped. So if we flash forward 20 years, we've got over 100 spas. We employ over 1,000 people, majority of women. Majority of my senior team are women. We've got a training school. We've got 3 campuses, Docklands, Fortitude Valley and Alexandria in New South Wales, and we train over 300 students per annum in remedial salon management and beauty therapy. We make skincare and wellness products, and we've got over 230 of those. We distribute internationally. So it's been a lot of different areas, and now we've got the online retreat, which is something that we thought up. So I think the network turns
clearly
over.
you just waved a magic wand then and it all just happens. Sounds
really easy. Yeah, no problem.
I've got to get one of those wands.
You've got one of those ones.
I loved what you said at the start because it rang a very familiar bell, and I think this is all the studies they've done on success. It comes down to persistence. Persistence is the one key factor to create success. And my way of saying persistence is I trust the seaworthiness of my own ship. I trust myself completely that I will manage and everything will be as it needs to be. And I heard that in what you said initially there. It's just that, whatever happens, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to give it a crack and so be it.
Yeah, persistence. But sometimes I think my persistence is also just relentlessness, I just don't stop or take no for an answer.
Is that relentlessness? Is that a pushing through? Because we talk about going with the flowing instead of force. Manufacture is not as great as organic. So, do you think there was times when you manufactured and it didn't work, or and you've learned that, okay, stop manufacturing, stop being so excessive in that force? Or
I think for me, the underlying belief and knowing is that things will be okay and everything will work out. And I have a great belief in the universe and the laws of the universe. So I'm very conscious of cause and effect and what we think, act, say, and do. That's one half of my head. The other half of my head is also aware that I can think of these things, but if I don't act to make it happen, then they may just be a thinking thing that floats away and I've missed that opportunity. So I think Endota as a business really combines the spirit with action. And that's how I sort of live, because I'll have an idea, but if I don't act on it, it will come and go and the opportunity's gone. So it's both.
Well, it's meeting the universe halfway, isn't it? You've got to think of the ideas and you've got to turn up and do your half, but then the universe has to do its half as well.
Well, it's like the word inspiration is spirit in action, and that's kind of what you're describing here. Yeah,
spirit in action. Yeah, that's what we are, spirit in action. Yeah, wholeheartedly believe that. Co-creators with the divine. Yeah. Anywho, so yes, both.
No, it's wonderful. It's like we're in the same wheelhouse. It's that working with the universe, meeting it halfway, just living in that sense of trust. It's I can only do what I can do, but it's so important. It's great to hear other people doing that as well, because Ryan and I are on our business journeys. He's doing his thing, I'm doing my thing. So it's great to be inspired by businesses. In spirit.
One thing that jumped out as well, sorry to cut you off there, Melanie, but one thing you said first was really, really important that a lot of people don't quite grasp. And you said, I just thought I could give it a go and I knew that I'd be okay. And it's like this playing out of the worst case scenario kind of deal there. And I think so many people, it'd be interesting to the listeners to try to tune in and just be like, what haven't I done or given a go because I feel like for whatever reason I won't be okay. Because at the end of the day, everything we've been through up until this point, we've been okay because we're still here. And so it's like if we can make peace with that, then it kind of, I guess, frees us up to do things that we mightn't have done with that fear in place.
I think I had that frame of mind because I have a very loving and close family. So they were always like, just do your best. So that grounding sort of helps. And then also I was 26 when I started it. So some of it was faith and some of it was just naivety, like we just didn't know what was ahead.
Do you believe that you need that naivety though? Because if you knew the reality of how hard it would be, you might be like, fuck that.
Ignorance is bliss.
Yeah,
a little bit of that, but I think I probably would have done it anyway.
Right. Okay.
It's almost harder now. Like the network now turns over about 160 million and I've got an enormous amount of responsibility of the clients, the people that work for us, our franchisees, our suppliers. Like if I actually start thinking about all that stuff, I'm like, ooh, don't keep going. Don't think about that. And especially during the last 2 years when who knew what was going to happen. So I remember at the start of the 2 years, it was like, oh my God, are we going to be able to keep going? Like everybody, we're going to have to cut back. Everyone reduce their wages. Like, come on kids, we've got to just work through how we're going to do this. And then we did it. And now we're like, well, we came through that okay. Well, we came through that okay because we had a clear plan and our values were aligned. But in the beginning of the pandemic, we didn't know who would survive and who wouldn't in business, in life, in everything. So what was I saying? I can't remember.
It was an important point because my next question was around COVID. So I would love to know, some of the details around handling that, because I know being obviously yes, you've got your product line and everything, but being the main core of your business is such hands-on work.
Service,
Yeah, like, I mean,
you said... I know what's going on, So naivety was good a little bit, yes, but also I would probably still do it anyway. Harder, I get it that it's harder for people to start something new when you've got more to lose, is where I was going with that thought. So I do get that because I didn't have a house or anything, or I wasn't married. All that came later. So I had no responsibility then up to anyone but myself. So that I get that changes a little bit.
You had more freedom to put yourself out there.
And then COVID. Sorry, what was the question?
Yeah, well, I think one of the things you talked about over the last 2 years is you got through it by having a plan in place. You also said your values were aligned. That's really interesting to me. Like, tell me a little bit about that.
So the Endota values are intent, connect, truth, and balance. And I remember ages and ages ago, we had like a consulting firm come in and they said, you need 2 sets of values. You need an outward facing for the customer and you need an inward facing for your internal teams. And I was like, oh, hang on, that is not going to work because I can't remember any more than 4, let alone put them into action and live them. Anyway, and a lot of backwards and forwards, but we ended on 4. And the reason we ended on 4 is because I want everybody who works at Endota to know them and live them. So we make values. I know a lot of people talk about it now, but our values are our beliefs that shape our decision-making process and the way we choose to live. So at Endota, we have an awards. It's a therapist recognition night. So every year we recognise our therapists, and the awards are named after our values. We give prizes with I can't find one, but we had a little key ring and it had the values on. We hire and fire on those values, because the reason why we do and we make it so important is along my journey, I even talk to our suppliers about our values. I talk to our international distribution partners. The times that I haven't, in the beginning, we did a lot of things just to grow. And I worked with people that didn't share the same values, which is cool. If you don't share the values, that's fine. But when you try and work with someone who doesn't share your values, that's when it falls apart. So what I've learned is values are important because it makes the job easier in the long run. With growth, I can't be everywhere now. Like I used to know everybody and their kids and in the net. That doesn't happen. But if we share similar values, we know that if I'm not in the room, we would still make a similar decision or act a similar way.
The values are in the room still, aren't they?
The values are in the room. If we've got a hard decision to make and we have to make them, we go back to the values. Are we making it with the right intent? All of those things. So values are super important for our business. And I think the other thing that's really important, that's becoming more fashionable, I suppose, now, is leading with what we call feminine traits. So we believe that we all have masculine and feminine within us. We're moving very much away from the hard, fast, get up, fucking do it, no matter what, kill yourself, I don't care about you sort of mode, into which is how a lot of businesses are still run, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Into the way we've always run, which is a collaborative, nurturing, we don't know everything, so we've got to keep learning that way. And the majority of the people that work with us are part-time mums who have all sorts of things that they're doing as well. So we've had to nurture that along the way. So for us, the shift, although nervous at start, to moving to working from home, all of those things were made easier because of how we worked already, I think. And it is a new way of doing business now. It's the new way moving forward. It has to be all of those things combined. It can't just be.
Yeah, and I think it's me and Nick talk about it a lot, as we totally agree. Every person has a masculine and feminine and qualities. And with business, up until recently, it has been that just masculine dominant. I think there's been a belief there that that's the way that business has to be run or it won't be successful. So that's why I think, what you're doing is so important, because you are showing counter evidence to that belief and going, hey, we don't have to do things that way. There might be a time and place for that, but it's not beneficial 100% of the time. And I think it's a lot better for the, workers, partners and everything coming more from that feminine space. Would you agree, Nico?
Yeah, it's sad when you see a woman go into a male dominant industry and her masculine side really comes out because she feels she has to meet masculine energy with masculine energy. So it's great when you do meet anyone. And I spoke to, I'm bringing on a new practitioner, and I was speaking to him the other week about what I've noticed within myself recently is when I'm working with females, lots of females love working with me, and this is just their feedback, because they don't feel threatened. It's not another female with a female there, and that was really interesting to learn many years ago. But I've noticed when I'm working with a female... Is it that,
or do they just think you're two hotties? I don't know.
No, it's definitely not that.
They wouldn't think Nick's a hottie. I wouldn't think.
No, well, they probably might. They would.
We can rule that out.
Thinking about it, yeah, no. And so I said to Dan, this other practitioner, I'm like, when I'm working with a female, my female energy is front and center, my male energy is at the back. But when I'm working with the man, it's vice versa. But both energies are still in play, and I've done a lot of work over the years to balance those energies out. So, I talk about, things that not a lot of blokes, especially coming from the army, talk about, but yet I ride a motorbike and covered in tattoos and everything. So it's taken work to get into that space, but it's so important to have both of those energies available and accessible.
Yeah.
It's the same with it's the same with the reverse as well. I found it's like a lot of men will go with a female therapist because they can find they can relax. There's not that who's alpha in here, all that kind of jazz. It's like a healthy feminine will help the masculine relax, and that's why oftentimes that works as well. But yeah, ideally we integrate both.
Yeah, agreed.
And so when you talk about balance, and we're speaking about male and feminine energy within ourselves, but your workforce is predominantly female, so you don't see the need to balance out the workforce with males and females?
I would. I don't see the need to, but I would if they wanted to get into this industry. We've got a lot more of our remedial masseurs are blokes. I don't. We just, if you share
it's just what the business attracts.
That's it. Well, I think the industry has previously attracted more women. I think that's changing. We've got a few guys going through our school now, but it is it is something that will change slowly, I think, because of all the beliefs that we've held prior. It is seen as a softer, more feminine industry, but that's changing. It's changing, and people are learning we've got both within us. So, yeah.
I felt like a fish out of water in my industry. No, I wasn't suggesting that. I turn up to my industry association events and whatever, and I'm definitely part of the minority, a male under 50 in in that industry, and Ryan's the same. It's where the typical stereotypical practitioner in our industry is like a 60-year-old woman who is, come in and tell me all about such and such.
Yeah, I keep getting called a young guy. I'm like, I'm not young.
Yeah, same.
The area that when I go to business, or when I did before COVID, business events or talk with other CEOs, they're predominantly men. Yeah, so...
Did you feel yourself shift when you went into those spaces? Did you feel your energy changing, or did you feel fairly... I love the expression, they who are grounded within themselves don't need to look outside for approval, and so therefore we are able to stay more grounded and in our own space. Did you feel yourself shifting early on to try and match them or anything, or just unconsciously? No, you just turned up and did you?
Yeah, I think because of that confidence that was instilled in me, and also I know we're all not the same, and I'm not trying to be a man. I don't want to be a man. So I don't feel like I have to, I don't know. No, I think I'm the same.
That's awesome. That might lead on to the...
It was just more from an unconscious sort of, not a conscious, right? I have to go in here and do anything. But I was wondering whether you felt yourself, shift. But if you didn't, that's great.
I actually think being, being 26 when I started and a woman was a bit of a novelty. So with suppliers or landlords or anyone that was a man, it was sort of, they weren't used to talking to a 26-year-old who ran their own business back then. So if anything, I never found working with men to be a disadvantage. I found that they were very genuine and open with their sharing of knowledge, because I don't know whether you share that much.
You brought that out in them. You brought out that nurturing sort of side of them.
And I learned. A lot of my mentors were and still are guys. My board, I've got some amazing people on my board who are very entrepreneurial, and they're guys in their 60s, and they've imparted so much guidance and knowledge. So it is about, you need both. You need both, and we have to appreciate everything that everybody brings.
Yeah.
Melanie, I was reading a little blog thing before I jumped on here where you were being interviewed, and it was like
Did you research?
I did 2 minutes.
You've changed, man.
I've changed. Look at me. I've got a microphone. I'm professional now. And you were giving little, like, sing couple of word answers to some questions. And there was 2 that jumped out to me that I wouldn't mind you elaborating on. Yeah. No, so bad.
You know what? Ask me tomorrow. They'll be different again. But go on, yeah.
Success is, and you said, feeling free and accepting myself. Okay, which is beautiful. A topic on this podcast over and over again is how do we, accept ourselves. So I'd maybe like your definition.
And it's also redefining success as well. We talk a lot about.
Of course. Yeah. So, like, what is feeling free and accepting yourself to you, and maybe how do people not accept themselves? Where do you see people getting in their own way, I guess, is my question.
Okay, a couple of things. So when I say that, I think I love it when I see people reaching their full optimum potential, whatever that may be. If you see people doing something that they love, or I want everybody really to be able to do that and think that they can. That's freedom to me. Freedom is also not worrying for me about what other people think.
Oh, yeah. Good one.
So, and that comes from the confidence thing at the beginning. I know I'm loved. I've got a beautiful family and great friends, and even if I muck up or whatever, that's okay. So that is a feeling of freedom when you can be yourself. That's good. Also, I'm change and I'm always learning. So something I said a year ago could be totally different today, but I don't get mad at myself for that or think, you sounded like a loser back then, Mel. Okay, whatever. I was just learning. That's what I thought then. I've learned some more stuff. This is what I think now. So I'm always learning. I think that helps with freedom. And then success was a different sort of one that I had to get over. And I only had a realization the other day. Mum used to say to me, Mum, money is the root of all evil, from the Bible. So I was brought up thinking, and my son asked me something the other day. Oh, I know what it was. He had to go to hospital. We had to go to a hospital, and then we went to a private hospital. And he said, whoa, that was a different experience. And I said to him, yes, it was, mate. Money gives you choices. And so I had to change my relationship with money from being the root of all evil and it's just causing evil to actually, it's not bad having some cash because you can help people and you can do some stuff and you can have choices. It's not the only thing, but it's not help. It's just a tool. So
how you wield it.
Yeah, so I had to learn that. But then I also know everything you have can be taken away, so you have to find it from within. I have to be happy today with who I am, with where I've got to, because that could change. I can't rely on external forces to make me feel successful or happy.
Brilliant. Brilliant. A real changing around money programming. So many people have that. That was a big one for me as well. Money equaled conflict because that was my conditioning growing up. So it's like if I have money in my possession, there'll be conflict. So then subconsciously when I got into my 20s, I would just get rid of that stuff at all costs, and that's a lot of the work me and Nick did was kind of undoing a lot of that programming that so many of us had, especially in Australia. We've got the tall poppy syndrome thing is real. And so many people see people that are successful and talk badly of them. And then the kids that see that go, I better not reach up for my potential like you were talking about, because then I'm going to be disapproved of by my peers. And
we need to change that story.
I'm just listening to today, Mel. It's what I'm hearing, and there's no analysis going on, but it's just how I listen, is a very emotionally healthy person. And if you're, at the center of your business, then of course that's going to go through the business, and of course the business is going to be healthy because the fish rots from the head down. So
it must also be healthy from the head down, if that's the case.
Well, hurt people, heal people.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's wonderful just sitting back listening to someone talk so similarly to how I speak about everything you say. I'm going tick, yep, tick, yep, tick. So in a weird sense, it's given me confidence. No, it's not giving me confidence. It's validating, I suppose, the path I'm on and what we're doing in Myndfit. And yeah, for me, it's happening very organically, and I've got that persistence, and I've got that trust, and I teach. It sounds like you've been through a Myndfit program almost. It's like I teach happiness from is within. I learned the hard way through the military and coming out of that, pretty banged up mentally and physically. That when I had all this scaffolding around me, I was okay. I was happy, but then I learned the law of nature very intimately, that everything is taken away from you, and that's when I went crashing down. So, to hear you speak of that, there's not going to be a fear or an underlying anxiety in you that's going to permeate into your business. It's just that, it sounds beautiful. Congratulations on achieving that.
Thank you. I do think the work that we're doing, you guys and what you're doing and other practitioners, it is a big responsibility, and especially with our men as well. Like you said, I wasn't aware that you came out of that environment, but oh my God, everything needs a rethink. Our governments, how they lead, we just need to
even the penal system, all the systems, all the
schooling,
systems that we operate in.
Everything.
It's very archaic. It's very archaic.
The unlearning has to happen.
Yeah,
unlearning.
And so the one thing I hear the most. So we have a discovery session at Myndfit. It's a first date, just to make sure that we're going to work well together. And the most common thing I hear is A, it's relatable, but B, why aren't we learning this stuff in school? Why aren't we getting access to this stuff at an earlier age? And I'm like, because the system's just not set up that way at the moment. I live in hope that people, in places where they can affect change in that regard will, the prison system needs an overhaul. I mean, Ryan's done some hard time. I've spoken about that in earlier podcasts from his days as a
it was two of the hardest days that anyone's ever done in prison, I'll tell you what.
But it's going to be great when we can start implementing that change and changing those systems and structures that we're all brought up in.
Don't you feel like we're miles away from it? I tried to do something recently with a prison to give, it was a women's prison, and we wanted to work with them. It got that hard because on the contraband list of what can enter and exit a prison, and I wanted to do it, right? And we couldn't even get essential oils in because then they would mask the smell of anything else. And I was just like, far out, you can't even help if you want to. I feel like, we've come a long way, but we've still got so much to do, and our governments don't even get me started. Like, oh my God, like it's embarrassing. I feel like saying, are you embarrassed at how you run shit?
But that's where we come back to control the controllables. What can we change? Well, my partner Em studied permaculture and the work done by David Holmgren there, and the farming industry is a terrible industry, and the monoculture and all that. And I love what David's done, because he's like, all right, I can't change the system by trying to change the system. I can just create a new system that will attract people.
Parallel systems.
And so we've got to trust in that one will deconstruct while the new one will grow, and eventually it will pass it by.
Yeah, I had a bunch of people messaging me today because one of the MPs down here, Fiona Patton, was putting forward a bill today to decriminalise all drugs and treat it as a health problem, addiction as a health problem. And I saw a lot of people messaging me because that's what I've been banging on about for years. But I'm like, she will not get taken seriously. And I think Dan Andrews has already said, I'm not taking this very seriously. So yeah, I'm a little bit with you, Melanie. I think it's a fair way off until we see some societal change.
Yeah.
I've got another
change occurs when the pain of where we are becomes greater than the pain involved in moving. So it's just going to hit a critical point where there has to be enough suffering for people to go, right, it's a problem. Now we need to find a different way. But hopefully there's people in place that can create that new pathway and not just have the same people trying to create a similar system.
Yeah.
So
Baby steps.
back to this little interview that I was reading, Melanie. I've got one more from that, which I think is really interesting. You said your secret skill is listening to and trusting your intuition. I would love to know an example of this. It can be personal or business, but I would probably prefer a business one because this is more, because this trusting your intuition is, we would say, is more of a feminine energy and one that wouldn't have been seen a hell of a lot in business. It would have systems in place. What are my KPIs? I make decisions based on past data and all that. I would love to know an example of maybe you using your intuition at some point.
Yes. There are so many, and happens on a daily basis. Daily. What's one that I could share? I don't know, like sometimes I almost, you feel it. Like if I have to make a decision and it's not right, sometimes I'll feel sick about it.
If it's not aligned.
Yeah, and so I'm like, I can't do that. Let me think about one. It just happens so often.
What are you coming up with? When Emma and I were talking about this yesterday, we had a 5.5 hour drive, and it was funny how we got together. I was meant to come to Brisbane for a work thing, but I just heard something say, "Don't go to Brisbane. You're meant to go to this work party," and we're working together at the time, and so I cancelled my flight, and I just turned up unannounced to this work Christmas party. And next thing you know, that night we hooked up, and she made the best decision of her life, and she's living happily ever after. And it's a beautiful thing. No. But I said to her, and I said in the car, I was like, it sounds really weird, and especially for a bloke to talk about this, but I just, and I'm like, where does that come from? Like, there's so much we don't know, so much we can't see, you know, the energy. If we put some glasses on the sort of energy, it would live in a very different reality.
I love that. Like, I want those glasses.
That'd be so amazing. But where does that, like, and for me, and there's no way to define it yet, and maybe between lives or something, but it's like that's come to me. This is to me saying it's all preordained. It's all there's a pathway for us, and to me, listening to that tuition, it's a signpost of this is where you're meant to be, Nick. And I know when I've gone against that intuition, I've ended up in the woods, very alone and very afraid. So I've always had to come back to that path. Is that?
Yeah, all of that. Like, and is it a bit the spirit? Is it the consciousness? Is it our subconscious? Like sometimes if I don't know the answer to something, I think about it, then I go to sleep and I wake up and I've got the answer. I've got an amazing idea, and I'm like, "Ooh, this has come to me. It's not from me."
That's probably your Akashic records.
Probably my Akashic records, and they're like, "Mel, get back to this." And then I'm like, "Right, guys, now we're going to do this." Like, so it happens a lot. And I had to make a decision once. This was a big one. I had to make a decision, and it was lawyers involved and everything. And I didn't want to make the decision they were trying to get me to make, but I made it, right? And then my dad was with me, and I said to my dad on the way out, I feel sick. I did not want to make that decision. And Dad said, ring them and tell them you made the wrong decision. I was like, really? Could I do that? He goes, of course you can. Yes. You know, when you're not thinking straight, just ring them. Yeah. So I rang them and I said, actually, I'm really sorry, but I've made the wrong decision and I don't want that to happen. And they were like, yeah, cool, okay. But, you know, it actually made me feel like I knew I didn't want to make it. I made it. I felt sick. Change it. And that was a big thing. But little things like that happen every day, like, oh, yeah, or don't go there, or you should be doing this, or ring that person, or that person. And once you're in that flow or whatever, more and more of it happens. So you just believe it, and then it becomes like, oh, that does work. So then you keep
the trust gets greater.
So my understanding, my interpretation of that, listening to you is in Myndfit, we talk about cognitive distortions. So creating spaghetti brain, we can't see straight or think clearly, or we have cognitive clarities, and you know, the distortions create a lot of suffering, a lot of anxiety, depression, guilt, anger. And so when our mind, we use a lot of Buddhist philosophy in Myndfit. So when we have a liberated mind, or a mind free of bondage, then we're not in that suffering. We're actually our mind is so more open to receiving that intuitive knowledge, and it's because we can access those different levels of consciousness instead of being all just bound up and living in, oh God, what if, and the mental chatter is so loud you can't actually tune in to that. So once again, to me, it just sounds like you've got a lot of cognitive clarities happening. There's a lot of inner peace, and there's obviously anxiety and stress and whatever, but beyond that, there seems to be a really beautiful sense of peace where you can reach those planes of consciousness and tap into them.
Yes. Hope so.
Just a reflection.
I do meditation, guided meditation at night and stuff. The Akashic Records is one that I do often. So yeah, maybe when I wake up, it's there.
You're tapped into it.
I've told this. Why not? I'll take anything that I can tap into that makes it better.
Get all the help we can get.
Yeah. Give it a crack.
I think I've said this on the podcast before, but there was a story years and years ago with Michael Jackson and one of his handlers. He'd been on tour and done all these shows and like literally physically at the point of collapsing, so exhausted. And he went to go to bed and he jumped up because he had some new idea for a bit of music or something. And they're like, Michael, go back to bed. You're exhausted. He goes, no, I need to act on this now. Otherwise, Prince will do it. Which is the idea that it's floating around in the ether and someone's going to do it. Someone's going to do it. So let me be the one that does it. Let me be the one. Melanie, tell us about the online retreats. And is this a response to COVID and lockdowns and that kind of thing?
Partly. So we've always wanted... So the very first one in Bird Rock, we used to do sort of retreats and groups would come and we'd do activities and yoga and tarot card reading and food and then we moved away from that a bit, but then we always wanted to take people on retreat, and we had planned to do an online. So our online retreat is content, because one package is just content, and then one package is where you can get 12 months of content plus gift vouchers plus product, because we wanted to make it a touch and feel thing as well. Anyway, so we were going to film it all down here, and then in the first lockdown, I was trapped in Byron Bay.
Terrible. Poor thing.
And I got my boys to start soccer up there at the local Byron Bay Soccer Club. I was talking to one of the mums and I said, I was going to do this program and we had everybody ready to film down there, but now we're all in lockdown. And she goes, just do it up here. Right? So this is one of those moments. And I said, what do you mean? She goes, well, I know this yoga teacher, that you could ring this person and then my other girlfriend up there, she's a hairdresser. She found a makeup artist. Then I'd found someone who had had a treatment with before who I loved. So I rang her and she goes, well, me and my partner were doing sound bowl healing. Then we found a place. Someone said, go to this place. The guy was from Lorne. He goes, I know Tash, who works with you. Anyway, it all came together. And we filmed our first retreat program in Byron Bay. The film crew and everybody that we worked with were amazing. So then they came down to Victoria and shot our second one. And then our third one we're shooting now, back up in Byron, and we're doing qigong, tapping. There's a sexual health practitioner coming on and talking. So yeah, the idea was to we look after people's well-being through the services we provide, the product we make, and the content and education. So this was just another step in allowing people to have tools to help shift their energy. It's not a get weight loss program. It's if you want it, it's meditation, it's all of those things. Actually, what you guys do would be awesome on it too. So we'll talk more later. But just giving people tools and they can tap into it whenever they want. So, and then we sell it to corporates and just customers.
Unreal.
It's a beautiful thing. I'm starting to do a 12-week online program because it's all about educating. It's all about providing the tools and resources. When a client comes in, I say it's like they got a blindfold on and a tool belt that's missing all the tools. So we just start creating some awareness and start empowering with some tools and give them ownership over their own happiness and health and well-being instead of keep needing everyone to fix them, just getting themselves into that space. So
one day I would like to then take people who do our online. We'll actually go to retreat. So we'll hire. We
have Acacia. Acacia is set up. Is just in the process of being set up. So
it'd be awesome though. So good. Like they do it. A friend of what does he? He's got something in Bali. I forgot the name of it now. And people hire it out. and they take people over there and do retreats, but we could do it in Australia.
Well, we're going to hire Acacia out to build to other practitioners to run their retreats, but our retreats, so Emma, my partner, she does sound healing, she does Pilates, yoga, she's a myotherapist, she's
perfect.
Sound healing, gut healing, she does all that stuff, and then I do the mental health stuff, so it'll all be there.
Yeah, ace. So, yes.
Well,
That's how that came about.
Look at Ryan's smiling up there. He's just sitting back watching, going, "Oh, connections, beauty."
It is. I'm loving it. I think, this has been a wonderful chat, Melanie. I've really loved having you on, and I think it's really inspiring. I think for myself and I assume Nick and also the listeners to see someone who can be confident within themselves, can accept themselves, love themselves, take big risks, do big things, and maintain who they are and those values through the whole lot. I think it's incredibly inspiring. And I know I feel inspired after chatting to you today.
But doing so with a sense of trust, not fear, and that's the beautiful thing I love about this. And it's just connecting to that energy is wonderful. So, hat off to you. Congratulations.
Yes, and everyone, where can they get in touch? Just the website, Endota Spa, or the online retreat stuff. It's all there.
Yeah, all there. Yeah,
all there.
They will find their way to it.
You're trusting.
Needs it.
Yeah, we'll get in front of the people that it needs to get in front of. Lovely, Melanie. Really appreciate having you on today and for allowing us to chat to you for the past hour or so.
Pleasure. And we'll talk later about I need to learn more about Myndfit.
Yeah, so easy. Well, we're in Mornington. You guys are out at Cool Stores, so we're not too far away.
Yeah.
And I know so many people. Back. One of my friends, Caitlin Marshall, she's been designing.
Caitlin is a clanger. I love
Caitlin. She's a gun. She and I have. I can share a lot of stories about Caitlin if you'd
Can't we
like
all?
to hear some. Yeah.
Should I just stop on the recording?
No, Caitlin's amazing, and she ran all our shop fits with Janelle, another girl that works with us, and just gets the job done. So cool. I love her.
But it's great having Steph. Having that connection through Steph, because she gives me a lot of insight as well, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, there's some potential there to do some stuff there. So we'll chat later. Yeah,
ring me when you're back.
Yeah, all right.
Beautiful. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you, Nico, as always. Thank you, Melanie. We'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.
Peace.